This is Switchblade. Today we're going to talk about the cracked foundation of the American economy. We're going to look at demographics, something that you think probably would be extremely dull, but you have to understand how you are being decimated by the demographics of this nation. Now, each generation has its own unique personality, depending on when the people were conceived, the conditions under which they were raised, the economy at the time that they lived, and what they were able to pass along to the next generation. You can look at this chart and you can see that the birth rate over the past 100 years has ebbed and flowed with the economy and societal changes and war. The greatest generation, they underwent several economic calamities, and the birth rate plummeted into the silent generation, the generation of Elvis. They suffered. The birth rate dropped, stayed there. The boomer generation, the kids born in great optimism after the end of World War II. Then we have the generation known as Generation X. You can see again the birth rate is plummeting due to societal changes. Then we have the millennial generation, and now finally the internet generation. And that birth rate has plummeted to an all-time low in 2014, 2 years after I made these charts. Now, summer of 1987, I studied demographics for thousands of hours at Cal State Long Beach and at UCLA, scouring their libraries to really get a grip on it. I understood that 2006 was going to be a pivotal year for the American economy and housing specifically. Let's look at that year. The peak of baby boomer earnings, the peak of the housing bubble, the peak of baby boomer household net worth, and the accumulated wealth of 3 generations was in play. The American people were clueless. I understood it because I had studied it. The elite of this country and of the world understood these charts 50 years ago. They're generations ahead of you, and you can never catch up to where they are because they understand this stuff deeply and they believe in it. Now, let's look at the mean household net worth by age. You can see it peaks 55 to 64 years of age, a golden age. For boomers, that's 8 to 9 years in the rearview mirror. It's not coming back. Now, consumer spending bell curve. Peak spending years are 45 to 49. For boomers, it's over. Okay? That's in the rearview mirror, and it's not going to ever turn around. They're downsizing fast. Now, 48.8% of consumer spending is done by 35 to 54-year-olds. It's a golden age. You're in your prime. Now, guess what? That is the exact age that is being decimated in the American workforce, and they will never recover. Percentage of the population in that very specific age peaked in 2000 at the peak of everything, and it's never going to recover in my lifetime. I'm 60. It's over for my generation. The number of people retiring each year in the U.S. The boomers would love to retire with fat pensions, like their parents and their grandparents in many cases, but they have to go back into the workforce like the elderly, and they are the only ones that are increasing in number in the workforce. Number of children born per 1,000 people in the U.S. You can see that it's at an all-time low. This chart's 2 years old, April of 2014. And the birth rate now, January, is the lowest it's ever been. The fertility rate has been giving us a warning for years. It's been on the decline. It's now at an all-time low. We've still added over 12 million people to the American workforce since 2008, and no jobs. Fertility rate for women, 15 to 44. It's plummeting due to societal and technological changes. This series is not about race whatsoever. It's about the overall demographics of the nation. Now, let's look at the percentage of births outside of marriage. It's gone up over 1,000% in many cases over the past 70 years. It's the new norm. For women under 30 years of age in or actually in 2009, it was the norm, and it's going right through the roof. In Phoenix, Arizona, 2014, 45% of births are outside of marriage. Of those women, 70% have no high school degree. Women participating in WIC. They don't have money to feed their children. They probably don't have time to converse with them, buy them educational toys, or make sure that they can read and write before they get into kindergarten. SNAP program participation is expected to reach its peak in 2014 just as they slashed the benefits. And this was foreseen back in 2012. Now, let's look at marriage. The institution of marriage peaked World War II when people wanted to pass along their name, and the only way they knew how to do it was inside of marriage. That's an old-fashioned idea. Marriage is dying. Let's look at the percentage of women who believe that marriage is obsolete. You can see it depends on the age and also the education of the woman. And the women that are more educated, okay, they still believe in marriage. They understand that it adds stability. Now, fragility within the household. For female households with no husband present, they have the highest rate of poverty, and that's not going to change. That's going to be the new norm. Percentage of adults who attend religious services. With each successive generation, that number has dropped. And many Christians are still clueless about this. They don't understand what's happening to their churches or why. 2010 marked the death of the American family, the nuclear family. Only 22% of households were nuclear families in 2010. And this affects the fragility of the household, what you have to rely on, what you can fall back on, the education, the food, the quality of food that the children have in the household. Percentage of children 18 and over living with their parents in California. It's radically increased because the children can't find jobs, and in most cases, they are broke because of the debt load they're carrying from their college education. Now, multi-generational households have been slowly but steadily increasing since 1982, and this is not going to change. It's going to accelerate. We're now going to look at the vanishing American family. We're going to look at the difference between 1990, when you can see the nuclear family was prevalent over the American landscape. And then in a 20-year speck of time, which is nothing, you can see that the American nuclear family is now centered primarily in Utah, where the Mormons live. Again, that idea of stability and societal fragility. Now let's look at the rise of single-parent homes. In 1990, you can see that they were located in California, the Southwest, and the Old South. In a span of 20 years, they have expanded to become a sea of green upon the American landscape. The point of this video is that families are becoming extinct. Within the next 20 years, by 2030 at the latest, families will no longer exist as we know them. And it's very important that you get this concept. Who's going to provide for the children of the future? Is it going to be the state or families? It's going to be the state, and that's what was foreseen in this letter from Aldous Huxley to George Wells in October 1949. I urge you to read it at the end of the video. Get the idea that somebody other than you is going to provide water, the vitamins, the food. They will converse with your children, read to them, hold them, educate them, provide the toys, make sure that they read by the time they get to kindergarten. These things are not going to be done by families. They're going to be done by the state. Families are being bred out of existence. And the sooner you realize this, the more you will be awake as an individual and be able to explain this to your friends. I don't know what we can do about it, but it's imperative that you understand how deep this problem is and how dangerous.